100 weight of coal dust per acre of river, 0 enemy bombers fooled, and 1 dog who thought a canal was a newly paved road. Welcome to the bunker. I'm Professor Von Blunder, and today we're diving into one of Britain's most spectacularly stupid ideas of World War II. Picture this. It's 1941. German bombers are using Britain's rivers and lakes as shiny navigation beacons to find their targets. And someone in Whitehall has a brilliant idea. Why not just paint the Thames black? With coal dust. At night, while the tide washes it away. Winston Churchill himself stood on Westminster Bridge watching this genius plan unfold, while housewives across London wrote furious letters to their MPs about their ruined laundry. The Royal Navy assembled a crack team called the Kentucky Minstrels, equipped them with boats full of soot, and sent them out to make Britain's most famous river disappear. Spoiler alert, the river won. The tide laughed, and Private Timmy, as always, ended up covered in filth. This is the story of how Britain tried to camouflage the Thames and accidentally created the world's most expensive, least effective paint job. Let's start with the problem Britain was facing in 1941. Rivers at night are basically nature's neon signs pointing straight at your factories. When there's a full moon, water reflects light like a mirror, and suddenly every lake, river, and canal becomes a glowing highway visible from miles away. RAF bomber crews returning from raids on Kiel reported seeing the Elbe River from 50 miles away. 50 miles? One engineer, Donald Curry, did his own aerial reconnaissance on a hazy night with already reduced visibility and still picked out the Mersey at 35 miles. That's the distance from London to Brighton. Now, what would you do if enemy bombers were using your rivers as GPS? Britain decided to just paint them. The problem became urgent when German bombers started hammering Merseyside. The Luftwaffe had discovered a perfect navigation aid. 5 reservoirs in a neat line leading straight from the Trent Valley to the Liverpool docks. It was like someone had painted a dotted line saying, "Bomb here," across the Midlands. Every full moon, German navigators would spot these reservoirs glinting in the moonlight and follow them straight to the shipyards where Britain's merchant fleet was docked. Merchant ships were the lifeline of the war effort, bringing supplies across the Atlantic, while U-boats tried to sink them. Getting them safely into port, only to have them bombed while docked, was infuriating. The Battle of the Atlantic Committee, set up by Churchill himself, gave top priority to any measure that might protect ships in port. So when someone suggested camouflaging Britain's waterways, the idea didn't just get approved, it got enthusiastic backing from the very top. Enter the Kentucky Minstrels. This was the nickname given to the team of engineers and naval personnel, assembled to solve Britain's glowing river problem. They were part of a group called the Wheezers and Dodgers, which was the actual name for Britain's Department of Miscellaneous Weapons Development. Yes, that was real. The team was led by a man named Duncan Bruce, and they began their trials aboard a vessel with the most ironic name possible, HMS Purcell. For those unfamiliar, Purcell is a laundry detergent brand. They were about to make everything filthy using a boat named after soap. In military engineering terms, that means they turned the Royal Navy into chimney sweeps with boats. The plan was simple. Load 4 large launches with specialized spraying equipment, fill them with coal dust and soot, and send them out at night to coat the Thames in a thick black mantle. Private Timmy, naturally, was assigned to operate one of these sprayers. Picture him standing on deck in his crisp naval uniform, ready to serve king and country as someone hands him a hose connected to a tank of coal dust. The launches plied up and down the river, smothering the water in black particles. Churchill himself came out to Westminster Bridge multiple times to inspect the results. Timmy and his fellow crew members were soon covered head to toe in sooty grime that soap and water took hours to remove. They stopped noticing each other's appearance because everyone looked like they'd crawled out of a Victorian chimney. But the real problems were just beginning. Thameside housewives started writing furious letters to their MPs. Their freshly washed laundry, hanging out to dry, was being ruined by clouds of oily black particles drifting from the river. Now let's talk about the small problem of physics. To cover just 1 acre of water required at least 100 weight of specially prepared coal dust. That's over 50 kilograms per acre. And the Thames is slightly larger than 1 acre. But here's where it gets beautiful. The tide didn't care about Britain's camouflage plans. As fast as the launches sprayed their expensive coal dust onto the water, the tide simply washed it away. Wind made things worse. If any breeze was blowing, the entire black film would pile up against the shore, creating a useless dark ridge while the rest of the river remained perfectly visible. Choppy water was even less cooperative. One passing tugboat suffered a technical hitch and got absolutely deluged in oily black particles. The crew gave Timmy some extremely creative suggestions about where to stick the coal dust. HMS Persil was eventually reassigned to fishing dead cats and dogs out of the docks. The team did have one success at Coventry Canal, where they camouflaged the water so well that an old man and a dog walked straight into it, thinking it was a newly paved road. In tactical terms, that means they spent a fortune making a river that looked like a road, which only fooled British pedestrians. But by then, reality had arrived. The Luftwaffe had switched to bombing on moonless nights, making the whole exercise pointless. Even better, radar technology was rapidly advancing. The Germans no longer needed visual navigation aids when they had electronic guidance systems. In strategic terms, that means the enemy upgraded their technology while Britain was still throwing dust at the problem. The entire project was quietly abandoned. The coal dust washed away. The housewives stopped complaining, and Timmy finally got to wash his uniform. Time for the stupidity meter. Money wasted, 10 out of 10. They burned through a fortune on 100 weights of coal dust per acre, specialized spraying equipment, 4 naval launches, and an entire engineering team that achieved absolutely nothing. The tide literally washed their budget into the North Sea. Enemies killed, 0 out of 10. Not a single German bomber was fooled. The Luftwaffe kept finding their targets perfectly, then switched to moonless nights and radar anyway. Collateral damage to Timmy, 9 out of 10. Covered in coal dust for weeks, uniform ruined, publicly humiliated in Piccadilly, lungs probably full of soot, and his ship reassigned to fishing dead dogs out of the river. Overall stupidity score, 8.5 out of 10. Britain managed to create a camouflage system that only fooled British civilians, and one confused dog. So here's my question. If you had unlimited coal dust and a major river in 1941, what would you try to camouflage? Drop your answers in the comments below. And pour one out for Timmy. 80 years later, he's still coughing up black stuff.